Imagine you're having a truly terrible day. Everything has gone wrong. You feel that familiar, hard-to-swallow lump in your throat, and suddenly, salty water starts leaking from your eyes. In the modern world, we usually see crying as a weakness, an embarrassing moment to be hidden. But according to evolutionary biology, right now, you are experiencing one of the weirdest biological anomalies on the planet. Every animal produces tears to lubricate and clean their eyes, sure. But you are the only creature on Earth that leaks water from its eyes because of emotional pain. No other animal does this. But why? Why did millions of years of evolution decide to make our faces wet when we feel helpless? Here's the first twist. Those tears are not a malfunction. They are not your body glitching out or leaking by accident. They are a finely tuned piece of biological technology, millions of years in the making, doing exactly what evolution built them to do. And once you understand what that job actually is, you'll never feel embarrassed about crying again. Because the strangest part isn't that you cry. It's what's actually inside those tears. 3 kinds of tears, and one of them is a chemical mystery. Not all tears are the same. In fact, your eyes produce 3 completely different kinds, and they're not even made of the same stuff. The first kind is basal tears, the thin, constant film that keeps your eyes from drying out. Every animal with eyes has these. They're plumbing, nothing more. The second kind is reflex tears, the ones that flood your eyes when you chop an onion or get a speck of dust under your eyelid. These are a defense mechanism, flushing out irritants. Lots of animals have these too. And then there's the third kind, the strange one, emotional tears, the ones that show up when your heart breaks, when you're overwhelmed, when you're so happy you can't hold it in. And here's the part almost nobody knows. Emotional tears are chemically different from the other two. When biochemist William Fry studied the composition of emotional tears decades ago, he found they carry a heavier load of protein-based hormones than reflex tears, including stress-related chemicals like ACTH and prolactin, and even leucine and kephalin, one of your body's own natural painkillers. Read that again. When you cry from sadness, your body is literally producing a different fluid, laced with stress chemicals and a built-in painkiller, and pushing it out through your eyes. This led to a tempting idea that crying is a kind of pressure valve, flushing stress chemicals out of the body. That specific claim is still debated. But the basic fact remains genuinely bizarre. Your sad tears and your onion tears are not the same liquid. And the tears are only half of it. That lump in your throat, the one mentioned in the hook, the one that makes it suddenly hard to swallow right before you cry, is real, measurable physiology too. When a wave of strong emotion hits, your nervous system flips into high gear and the muscles around your throat react, leaving you with that tight, aching knot. It even has a name, the globus sensation. Your whole upper body is quietly rearranging itself to cry before a single tear falls. This isn't a random emotional side effect. It's a coordinated, full-body response, which is a strange amount of engineering for something we dismiss as a moment of weakness. Which raises an even bigger question. If these tears are so special, why are you the only creature on the planet that sheds them? You are the only one. Look around the animal kingdom and you'll find no shortage of tears. Dogs, cats, elephants, horses, they all produce tears to protect their eyes. Some animals will even tear up from pain or irritation. But emotional tears, water shed purely because of a feeling, with no speck of dust, no injury to the eye, appear to belong to you alone. To humans. To no one else. Even Charles Darwin was baffled by this. When he studied how humans and animals express emotion, weeping stood out as a puzzle he couldn't fully crack. He noted that humans are essentially the only animals that weep, and he couldn't quite explain why it would have evolved at all. To him, it almost looked purposeless, an emotional overflow with no clear function. But Darwin was missing something. Because crying isn't purposeless at all. It's one of the most powerful, most ancient social signals your species ever invented. And to understand it, you have to go back to a time before words even existed, to a dark, dangerous night, hundreds of thousands of years ago. A silent scream in the dark. Picture one of your distant ancestors, long before language. It's night. The fire has burned low. The world beyond the dim circle of light is full of things with claws and teeth and excellent hearing. And somewhere in that darkness, a young human is in trouble. Hurt. Lost. Helpless. desperate for someone to come. What are the options? Screaming would work, but screaming would be extremely dangerous. A loud cry in the dark would attract attention from every predator within range, essentially signaling your exact location. The very act of calling for help could put you, and anyone who came to help you, at great risk. So evolution faced a brutal problem. How do you signal, "I need help," without making a sound? How do you call for your tribe without calling the wolves? And this is the theory at the heart of the whole mystery. According to one powerful evolutionary explanation, emotional tears may have emerged as exactly that solution, a silent distress signal. A way to scream for help without making a sound. Tears are visual, not audible. Up close, to the people who love you. Glistening eyes say something is wrong, "I need you," while staying completely invisible and inaudible to the predator lurking just beyond the firelight. Think about how perfect that is. A signal that only works at close range, only for the members of your group who are near enough to see it. A private message between you and the people most likely to actually help you. Crying, in this view, isn't weakness leaking out of you. It's one of the first messages humans ever learned to send without words. But there's an even cleverer layer to this, because a good signal has to be impossible to fake. Here's a problem with any cry for help. What stops someone from faking it to manipulate others? In evolution, signals that can be cheaply faked tend to stop working. The most trustworthy signals are the ones that are costly, the ones that actually handicap the sender. And tears do exactly that. When you cry hard, your vision blurs. The world goes watery and smeared. In that moment, you are physically less able to fight, to aim, to flee, to defend yourself. You have, in effect, voluntarily lowered your own guard. Evolutionary researchers have argued that this is the genius of it. By blurring your vision and disarming yourself, tears become an honest signal. They say, loudly and unfakeably, "I am not a threat to you. I have dropped my defenses. I am throwing myself on your mercy." It's the human equivalent of a wolf rolling onto its back and exposing its throat, a gesture of pure submission and trust. And that honesty is what makes tears so effective at melting other people. It's very hard to stay angry at someone who is genuinely crying. Tears tend to defuse aggression, to switch off the threat response in the person watching, and to flip it into something else entirely. The urge to comfort, to protect, to help. A weapon lowers. A voice softens. An enemy, sometimes, becomes a caretaker. All triggered by a little salt water that proves you mean no harm. So crying doesn't just call for help. It disarms both you and the person you're calling. And that turns out to be the foundation of something much bigger. The glue that holds the tribe together. Humans survive for one reason above all others. We are almost helplessly social. Alone, a human is weak, not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most armed. Together, we became the most dominant species on Earth. And everything that strengthens the bonds between us is evolutionary gold. This is where crying becomes more than a personal cry for help. According to the psychologist Advinger Hotz, one of the world's leading researchers on tears, crying is fundamentally an attachment behavior, a tool that pulls other people closer and binds groups together. When you cry, you trigger empathy in the people around you. Their brains light up with the urge to respond, to soothe, to support. Your tears reach into them and ask for connection, and most of the time, connection is exactly what comes back. There's also something contagious about it. You felt this yourself. Watch one person break down at a funeral, and the tears ripple outward through the whole room. This emotional contagion isn't a flaw, it may be a feature. Shared crying synchronizes a group's emotions, knits people into a single grieving, feeling unit, and reminds everyone that they're in it together. In moments of loss or fear, tears bond a tribe the way few other things can. And there may be a hidden chemical layer to all of this. In one striking study, researchers found that human emotional tears carry chemosignals. When men simply smelled women's emotional tears, without even knowing what they were, it measurably reduced their arousal and testosterone. Tears, in other words, might not just be a visual signal. They might be a chemical message too, quietly altering the behavior and even the biology of the people around you. We are still only beginning to understand what that message says. Why you start crying before you can even speak. Here's a detail that ties the whole story together. A human baby cries from the very first moment of life. But at first, those cries come without tears. Newborns wail, but the emotional tears, the actual weeping, usually develop only in the following weeks and months. Think about what that means. Before a baby can speak, before it can crawl, before it understands a single word, it already has this tool, a way to summon a caregiver, to say I need you without language. Crying is one of the very first forms of communication you ever use, and in a sense, you never stop using it. From the helpless newborn to the grieving adult, it's the same ancient signal. Come closer, I can't do this alone. And this is probably why crying so often makes you feel better afterward. For a long time, people assumed the relief came from flushing out stress chemicals. But the more convincing explanation is social. Crying works because it brings people to you. The comfort, the hug, the soft voice, the sense of not being alone anymore. That's the real payoff. You feel better after a good cry, not mainly because of what left your body, but because of who showed up. Crying is a call, and relief is the answer arriving. But why do we cry at beautiful things? There's one part of this that the cry for help theory doesn't obviously explain, and it's worth facing head on. Because you don't only cry when you're hurt or helpless. You cry at weddings, at reunions, at a piece of music that hits something deep, at the sight of a child taking their first steps, or a soldier coming home, or a stranger's unexpected kindness. Sometimes you cry precisely because something is so good. So what's going on there? The likely answer is that the signal got generalized. Once evolution wired tears to moments of overwhelming emotional intensity, that wiring didn't locked to pain alone. It became a marker for any moment too big to hold inside, any moment of profound significance, connection, or meaning. And notice what nearly all of those tearful moments have in common. Other people. Weddings, funerals, reunions, homecomings, births. We cry hardest at the great hinge points of human relationships, the moments when bonds are formed, broken, or remade. That fits the whole story perfectly. If tears evolved as a tool of connection, then it makes complete sense that they'd erupt at the most connection-soaked moments of your life, whether those moments are joyful or devastating. Crying at beauty isn't a bug in the system. It's the same ancient signal firing at full strength, saying, "This matters, this is overwhelming, and I am sharing it with you." So let's go back to that terrible day. The lump in your throat. The salt water leaking down your face. The instinct to hide it, to apologize for it, to call it weakness. It is the opposite of weakness. That wet face is one of the oldest, most sophisticated pieces of social technology your species ever evolved. It's a silent scream perfected over hundreds of thousands of years, a signal designed to call for help without calling for danger, to disarm an enemy, to summon a friend, to bind a grieving tribe into one. When you cry, you are speaking a language older than words, one that every human who ever lived already understood. You are doing the most human thing it is possible to do. The next time tears come and you feel the urge to be ashamed, remember what they actually are. Not a glitch, not a failure. A message, written in salt water, that says the truest thing a person can say. I'm hurting and I need you. And the fact that it works, the fact that it pulls people toward you instead of away, is proof of just how deeply we were built to need each other. And maybe that's the real lesson hiding in your tears. For all our weapons and walls and pretending to be fine, the human animal never actually evolved to be self-sufficient. We evolved to lean on each other. Crying is the body's oldest admission of that truth, a reflex that overrides our pride and quietly confesses that we were never meant to face the dark alone. Every tear is a small act of trust. And in a world that keeps telling you to toughen up and hide it, choosing to let someone see you cry might just be one of the bravest, most deeply human things you can do. So here's the question for you. When was the last time you let yourself really cry, and who showed up when you did? And do you think crying is a weakness, or, like evolution seems to suggest, one of our greatest strengths? Tell me in the comments. If this changed the way you see that lump in your throat, subscribe and stick around, because the human body is full of strange, beautiful habits like this one, and we're just getting started. See you in the next one.